What's up, everybody? Welcome back. It's Correlation Nation, and today we're going to be going over the BMF title fight and pretty good card. This is no hype, just fight. We're going to run through this rapid pace, break down these fights. No hoopla, baby. Let's run it, okay? So we're going to be starting obviously at the bottom of the card. First thing we're going to look at is some of the things that happened. We're not going to talk about all these things because most of the stuff was already kind of set in stone. The one that just popped up was the Gaston Bolaños going against Lee. That one fell out. Botch weight cut. And then the first fight of the night, we have Luke Fernandez going against Rodolfo Bellato. And, Fernandez is the guy that is coming off Contender Series. Let's see what he says. Fairly light-footed pressure striker. Shows decent balance and a bit of footwork. Boxing is quite loose. The guy wants to find his way to the clinch where he will use cage push with a bit of dirty boxing. Will look to get the fight to the ground, but seems to lack legitimate takedown ability. This is my initial breakdown of the guy. Like I said, just came off Contender Series, and obviously there's a lot of unknowns. So we're just speaking on some of the things that we've been able to see and really where our questions lie with his ability. So nonetheless, that's kind of what I've got from him. And then when we look at the other side on Rodolfo, let's pull him up. That's not going to work. Bellato. All right, Rodolfo Bellato. This guy is a light-footed striker, not very technical, more of a brawler. Has good power and is pretty durable, mostly. Likes to get opponents down and ground and pound them until, an opportunity to get a submission. And that's the type of fighter he is. So they're a bit similar in some aspect. I do think that Rodolfo is going to be the more effective striker, in my opinion. I think he wins his fight at distance. But I also think that they're very competitive in clinching and grappling scenarios. Now, I may be wrong. Luke Fernandez is a guy that seems to grapple. Like, he's not just this guy that has credentials, right? Or like a guy that, he has a black belt or whatever. Like, no. The reality is when you pull this guy up, you do see that he competes in grappling at a pretty high level, because I've seen he fought like Phil Hawes. Had a matchup against Patrick Downey. Now that matchup didn't actually. But Eric Anders, the UFC type of guy. Yeah, I mean, the guy has competed in grappling events before, so I don't know that he has the greatest overall submission ability or whatever, but I would say he's a very sufficient grappler nonetheless. So I don't see him getting caught and submitted, but this isn't a grappling match, it is MMA. And the skill or the striking skill set's going to come into play. So I do think Bellato does win in the striking, and then I think it's competitive in the grappling. So I want to favor Bellato personally. That's just kind of where I lie with it right now. I'll look at the weigh-in, see how they match up, see what other people think about it. But just skill for skill, I am favoring the Bellato side on this one. And then we're going to move on to the Gaston. Oh, yeah, Gaston Bolaños, he's gone. So we're going to move on and look at one of the next fights. Let's see. All right, so we have Rafael Tobias going against Dair Nergoze. Forgive me if I butchered these names, but that's not my specialty. Anywho, Tobias is another guy. This guy's coming off Contender Series. Dair is another guy that also came off Contender Series, I believe, a couple years ago, or at least like a year ago. Now, let's pull up Tobias. All right. Tobias is a fairly light-footed striker. He shows a bit of bounce with seemingly solid footwork. Carries a high guard, fights behind a solid left jab, decent right cross, but tends to throw a bit wide. Doesn't move his head a whole lot. Will work towards the clinch, where he can wear on his opponents and has been able to get takedowns. I question the efficiency, obviously. I'm not sure about that. But he does seem to work tirelessly, so he will go for it. And he seems to advance quite well on the ground. He'll work towards mount. And he's just an overall very methodical grappler, control-based grappler with moderate ground and pound. So you're not going to see like crazy ground and pound, but he will mix it in if the opportunity's there. But he's going to look to methodically advance positionally till he's in a dominant position and kind of go to work from there. And then on the other side of it, you have, my apologies, it is Dair, right? So let's pull up Dair. All right. This guy is a fairly light-footed striker. He's a bit plotty, but he has some range management. Fights behind a nice backside kick. He will throw it low and high. He's a diverse kicker. Will counter with hands. Clinch game looks solid. He'll throw knees, stay active. Active grappler that scrambles. Like, he scrambles well, but he's sloppy. And that leaves him open to being caught. Heavy ground and pound. Takedown defense looks pretty good. Now, obviously, there's some questions on the back end of this because he's been finished, or at least I think he was finished in his last 2 fights. But nonetheless, has not looked that good in his last 2 fights. And I think that stylistically, this match up where I think that Dair could look good on the feet, right? If he's able to keep it on the feet, he can look good. He can win this fight. For sure. I think that he is probably, like, if this was a kickboxing match purely or something like that, I would probably favor him. But the problem is it's not. And the other guy is going to be pretty competitively, I think. Like, he's going to fight competitively on the feet. So ultimately, I am going to favor with the guy that, the newcomer in Tobias. I think that, he can keep it pretty competitive on the feet. And I think that, he can get to positions and potentially even finish his fight. Now, I would love to see his overall record. Like, this, is he getting a ton of submissions? Like, he's 14-1. The competition isn't great. But he does have 6 submissions, rear naked, arm triangle, guillotine. He has been punched out too, though. So I don't think this fight goes mostly. Like, I think that's probably but you feel pretty good about that. Probably Tobias by finished. Really hard to say which one, but there is a world where Dair could knock him out too, because this dude's been punched out before, and I do think that Dair is probably the more technical striker. So there's a world that happens. I just don't know. I think the jury's out on fucking old Dair. There's a lot we're wondering about this guy that we don't know, and maybe he's just not going built out for the UFC or whatever. But we'll see. I do think he has a good striking skill set. He's just got a huge deficiency in the grappling, clearly. So anyways, we're going to move on. Next fight, we are going to be looking at Sumudaerji going against Jesus Aguilar. Pretty fun scrap, I guess. Sumudaerji, let's pull him up. Sumu. We're gonna try to run through this, baby. Sumu. Let's run through this. I'll put a 6. See my deficiencies. All right, light-footed striker, good movement, decent range management, can be pressured straight back. Fights long, clean 1-2, powerful left cross. He has a nice backside and frontside kicks. Keeps his hands a bit low. You don't really love that, but he's long. Whatever. A bit volatile, whatever. And he looks lost on the ground. Now, I do feel like he's improved his ground game at least a bit. He's been able to, I think, implement a little bit of like just takedown to help him secure some victories. And on the other side of him, like I said, I think it's Jesus Aguilar. Pull it up. Let me look right here. Yeah, we have Jesus. Pull this. Jesus Aguilar. All right. Jesus is a fairly light-footed striker. He shows decent bounce with some footwork. Striking isn't very conventional. He has pretty nice backside, low, and side kicks. Seems to make large movements when he's striking. Commits to his punches. So he does have solid power. but it's like herky-jerky, you know, it's not like super clean. But nonetheless, takedown defense looks decent enough. He sprawls really well and is quick to the guillotine from that position. Um, all in all, I like Jesus. I think he's a dog. I think he's a guy that, you know, he's hard to count out, right? Especially because of his just willingness to kind of push forward and actually fight. But the problem in this matchup is I do believe Sumudaerji is just a much bigger, much longer fighter, and he's naturally just a much more skilled striker. Um, so and he's pretty light-footed, so if he's able to keep this on the feet, I think that Sumudaerji just kind of runs through Jesus, but I wouldn't really bet on that because I do think that Jesus is a dog's dog. Like he's a fighter's fighter. He's a phoenix rising from the ashes. Like you don't really want to count old boy out. And he is going to come to scrap. So for that reason, I'll favor Sumudaerji, but you know he's also not a guy that I want to lay a bunch of money on or whatever. You know he's minus 240, which isn't too absolutely wild. I think that's a decently fair line. He's just, again, maybe a little too juiced for my liking personally. But I do favor him, and I do think that he can win this fight. I just don't know how, and I just don't know that I can bet on it. You know what I mean? But I would lean his way. Moving on, the next fight, we're looking at Cody Durden. And I'm not even going to try to pronounce. Actually, I will. I will try to pronounce his name. But Nyamjargal, Tumendemberel, whatever. Forgive me, but I attempted it. This guy's decent. Like I look at this fight, my initial thought of it just before I get into the actual breakdown is this is a dog fight. Okay, this is like last week's Moutinho and I don't even remember who he fought, but you know I looked at that fight and I was like, yo, this is a dog fight. This is the same thing. You got two guys. They're pretty scrappy. They're dogs. You know. And let's go ahead and hop in a Cody Durden real quick. See what he's going to present to this fight. Cody. All right, Cody Durden. This guy is a fairly light-footed striker. He shows technical footwork, gets caught standing in the pocket. Lacks technical footwork, and he gets caught standing in the pocket. Boxing is okay. Has a decent left jab, average speed at best. Carries his hands a bit low. Does have a good chin, seemingly. Solid wrestling, will chain, decent control, and he's a position over submission type of guy. And because of these things, you know, it makes Durden a pretty solid fighter, pretty well-rounded, and just a tough matchup for some guys, especially because he does tend to be able to kind of withstand a bit of a beating and then come back later. You know, he's got good cardio, good will to fight. But his chin can be clipped. He can be caught in submissions. He's not the most imposing athlete in the world. He's just a hard-working dude. And put himself together pretty well. But he definitely has his deficiencies nonetheless. And then we look at the other side of this. We're going to go, oh, snap, baby. Pull him up. All right. NYAM. All right. This guy is a he's flat-footed pressure striker. Fairly measured. Shows a bit of bounce with some footwork. He's pretty willing to stand in the pocket. Boxing is a bit loose, but he does mix up his targets pretty well. Looks to overwhelm his opponents. Yeah, I've watched film on this guy, at least a few of his tapes. Yeah, he's a guy that's just going to kind of come into the pocket, find his way into the pocket, be there, be in your face, and just look to just kind of put it on you, really. You know what I mean? Just mix up his angles, his punches, just move and punch from here and there, and look to really just kind of overwhelm his opponents. Has solid backside low kick and side kick. Has some takedown ability. He'll get the body lock and look to kind of trip you or maybe even toss you. But he has a nice back take to rear naked choke. And, you know, he's opportunistic opportunistic submissions. Questions on his defense. Okay, I think this fight, all in all, is volatile. Mostly because, well, there's a lot we haven't seen from this guy, just to be honest with you. And Durden has shown the ability to win fights he shouldn't win, and he's shown the ability to lose fights he probably should win. So, for those reasons, it's really, really hard to pick either of these guys. I am going to favor the Mongolian in this, just because we haven't seen the deficiencies. We haven't seen all the holes yet. But again, Durden is a little bit like Jesus, that I just really wouldn't count him out. I really wouldn't want to bet against the guy. So, I don't know. I mean, there's probably value on him just for that reason, right? I would like to think. I'll see how they match up. I'll see what other people think, and I'll go from there. I'm not too sure how I feel about that matchup right now. But I think it's a dog fight. And it's a volatile fight, okay? And we'll go ahead and move on for now and go to Alberto. It's Alberto Montes going against Ricky Turcios, I believe. Pull these guys up. Ooh. Let's see. All right. This took us way back further than we wanted to be. Alberto Montes. Ooh. Montes. All right. I must have misspelled it. Here we are. I don't have much on this guy. I'm going to have to update his stuff, but I just have he's a karate stance striker. Kick heavy, flashy kicks, accepts cage push. Very little. Doesn't give me much go on. I know there's a lot of unknowns. I believe he fought on Contender Series. Let's go ahead and pull him up just for a bit of reference on him. He's 10-1. He's 31. He's 5'7", 69-inch reach. I guess that's fairly decent size. Only one knockout, 1-1 to the knockout, and then he has 6 submission wins and 3 decision wins. Now, I'd imagine he hasn't fought the absolute greatest level of competition, but he fought in Combate Global. Is that Combate Global? I actually kind of like these promotions, honestly. I ain't gonna lie to you. I watched tons of great fighters come from here. 2 Anaconda chokes, Bang Bang Contender Series, and Combate Dar's choke in Combate Global. Got punched out here to a guy that was 2-0. That's not a great look, but another Anaconda choke. Now, maybe he's kind of a choke specialist or whatever. I don't know. I need to watch the guy's film. I need to go over it a lot better. So I'm definitely going to be curious to see what people have to say about this guy. But apparently, whenever I watched film on him initially, and I was doing my notes very, very low level of notes, because I didn't focus on notes. I focused on this completely other. It's not even really a statistic, nonetheless, but it was these charts I was creating based off optics. Now, my notes on him are very little, so I need to update them, but I obviously have this impression that he a bit more of a striker, you know what I mean? Maybe he's not a great striker, I don't know. Need to watch the film. That's all there is to it. So, he's going to be fighting Ricky Turcios. Let's pull up Ricky. We do have notes on Ricky. Ricky Turcios. This guy is a fairly light-footed striker. He shows some bounce with a bit of footwork. Easy to back up when he's not fighting forward. Very questionable takedown defense. Does defend and scramble pretty well, but he can lose minutes on the ground, from his back. But he does have fairly aggressive jiu-jitsu game. He will threaten submissions and what have you. He has nice butterfly sweeps from the bottom. Strikes into the clinch where he has some decent cage push or cage and clinch work. He'll use Muay Thai, use some knees and elbows. He fights with a pretty good pace. Yeah, he's like a grit kind of, outlast you type of guy, defend and outlast you type of guy mostly. But he is a guy that's been able to he's been able to be outclassed before. I need to watch the level of grappling skills that Montes has, because I believe that Turcios is pretty solid on the ground, right? Like he's going to defend at a pretty high level mostly. And so this is another one that's really, really tough to call, in my opinion. Turcios is going to be a little bit bigger. Let's pull him up on paper. Age shouldn't really be significant. It's a 1-year age gap. Turcios is the larger fighter, 2-inch height and reach advantage. He's probably fought a little bit more recently, because that's the other thing. Montes hasn't fought in quite some time. Let's see when his last fight was. Last fight was 2024. And also October. Hasn't even fought in the UFC. Had 2 cancellations, not too sure. Yeah, not really sure what happened with that, but nonetheless, yeah, I'd like to see them size up, see how they look, standing against one another, and also just see what other people have to say about this fight. Because it's an interesting matchup. I ultimately think that their likeliness of Ricky being able to strike his way into the clinch, getting some Muay Thai work and some clinch work in, and I would think that he would be able to out grapple Montes, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe his submission skill set is really legit. Let's pull up Ricky just really quick and see. Only been submitted once. Rojas got him with the rear naked choke, but to be honest, in that fight, I feel like he had him in some pretty. That's really just Rojas being able to really out wrestle and out grapple him for a longer duration. And I don't know that that's, again, Montes. I'm not sure. I don't think that's the case. I do think that Turcios is going to be able to defend a lot of the grappling scenarios. But let's acknowledge this guy might just be a nasty choke artist, and Turcios is probably the more, in my opinion, likely winner in this fight. But I need to watch film on Alberto. So, moving on, we are going to Donte Johnson going against Cody Brundage. This is a pretty fun fight. I am, quickly becoming a fan of our boy Donte Johnson, because I remember I picked against him. Anyways, let's run into this. Let's not talk about it now. Let's go into this. Donte Johnson, pull him up. Donte Johnson, here we are. Here's our boy. All right, this guy's light-footed pressure striker. He uses lots of movement laterally, and then he seems relatively aggressive. Striking looks okay. He likes to throw the right low kick, and he'll throw it from both stances. So switch stances, and he'll throw that right leg from either stance. Uses a lot of body movement as well with a high guard. Explosive striker that commits to his punches. Which is kind of a plus minus, because yeah, he's powerful, but he also extends himself, so I could see him being countered by a high level counter striker. Will engage in the clinch. Takedown ability is in question. I think he's super explosive and he can get takedowns, but whatever. You know what I mean? But he is an active clinch striker, so even if he can't get it down, he will be active in the clinch. Vicious ground and pound if he finds his way to top position. So all in all, he's just got like a very aggressive kind of fighting style, and he's aggressive. I think he's like the highest level of kind of like measured aggression you can kind of almost have, because this guy's going to look to bite down on the mouthpiece and go forward, and his striking is not always super duper clean, and I'm sure he's working on that and getting it tightened up. But it's when you put everything together, the footwork, the explosiveness, the reach on such a small frame, And even though his striking is a little unorthodox to some degree, like kind of a little wide and loopy, because of his size and frame and the way he throws, I would say those angles are a little bit odd, especially even defensively. You know what I mean? So maybe he's hard to hit. I don't know. I don't know. But he is a pretty top tier athlete in my opinion. Very explosive, great power. And then when you look at the other side, you have Cody Brundage. Now I'm gonna pull this big dog up. Let's pull him up. Oh, Cody Brundage. All right. Cody is a light-footed pressure striker, loose, reckless boxing, carries his hands low, has good power. He is a plus athlete. Initial sprawls on takedown attempts towards him is like he scrambles and whatnot are good, but the guy seems to get lost pretty quick. Questionable fight IQ. Yeah, I mean, there's not really much you can say about Cody Brundage. The thing is the guy is very talented, right? I think as an athlete, he can do a lot of things, but he doesn't really close the gap with all his skills, right? I think he has decent wrestling. You know, he has good power, which is more of a natural trait than an actual. But like gets lost on the ground, makes really questionable decisions, just puts himself in tough spots. And so, even though he has ability, he has very questionable decision making. And for that reason, I can never really get behind him like that. I'm going to favor Donte Johnson. I think Donte Johnson is potentially kind of like, something to look out for. You know, young, working on his stuff. And then when you see the guy talk, you can see this guy's like, I don't know, maybe he's a bit too arrogant, but I don't know, he seems humble too. I do like him, and he has a real, it's like an arrogance, like cockiness, but it seems more like kind of confidence and like a willingness to like put in the work. I don't know. I like his mentality. It seems good, and look to see him kind of grow into the UFC, see what he has to offer. But let him develop. You know, he's not quite all the way there yet, but he's working on it. And then our next fight, we're going to be looking at. Let's pull it up. Well, actually, I didn't really say. Just sorry. Going back to this last fight real quick. Yeah, Donte Johnson. I suspect, you know, mostly this fight doesn't finish, and that's due to the Donte Johnson's aggressiveness. This fight won't get out of the second round. Might not get out of the first round. Um, and yeah, Cody has the power probably to knock Donte out or catch him in something. I think it could happen, but I definitely favor Donte Johnson probably by round one, round two KO. Is what I think. But round one, round two, Donte Johnson. I don't know. Is what it is. Moving on. Following fight, we're going to be looking at Cody Garbrandt going against Xiao Long. And this is another pretty fun fight. Cody Garbrandt. Let's pull this big dog up. We got him already, actually. Let's just talk about it. All right, patient light-footed striker. He's fast, good right outside low kick, inside low kick at range. Tight, crisp boxing, counters well, sprawls and scrambles well, but can get caught in transitions by higher level grapplers. And another thing I'll add to this that's not in here is that he does fade. So, in the first round of the fight, and maybe not even through the whole first round, it really depends. You're going to see a level of athlete and skill and talent in Cody Garbrandt that you don't see in many fighters. It's just a fact. This guy is nasty. He's really quick. He's really good. The problem is it's a little chaotic. He's such a fast twitch guy that I don't know if he can maintain. So I'd like to see him come in ready to fight, full camp, good shape, and be able to put on a whole 15-minute fight, especially right now, and if he can, I'm not going to pick against this guy because I think he is that good. I just can't really pick for him because he's not shown up so many times, and that's the biggest thing. The greatest ability is availability. And if you can't show up in the second and third round, I'm sorry. You're a liability, right? So we have Cody Garbrandt on that side. Now let's look at Blanc. Poof. Xiao. This guy is a fairly light-footed striker. A bit plotty, but shows some bounce. Evasive footwork. Striking looks okay. Decent backside. Right leg. Low kick. Basic loose boxing. Solid power. Seems to have strong clinch game. You know, like he's physically strong. Good knees. Dirty boxing. Has some wrestling. And then seems to scramble and transition pretty well. But, you know, there's a lot of unknowns on this guy because, you know, he's young with a lot of experience, you know, the level of competition and who he's fought and all that. I don't know. He's been on road to the UFC. He looks like a great athlete or like, you know, a real fighter. And I do think that he's, you know, what I would say is the experience is going to do him a lot of favor, especially in the UFC. But he has lost. And I do think that Cody Garbrandt, skill-wise, it's like in the striking, it like levels ahead of Long. And then truly just going to come down. It's like I said, was he prepared to fight for 15 minutes? If he is, Cody wins his fight, you know, and I would bet money on that, but you can't bet on money on him showing up. So for those reasons, it's just a volatile fight. But I'll take Cody Garbrandt. I do think that he's the much more skilled fighter here. It's just, can he fight the entire time? And we'll find out. We're gonna move on to the next fight. Oh, this is fun. We got Gregory Rodrigues here going against Bruno Ferreira. You know, these guys have met before. You know, there's a pretty big height difference here, and you'll see that in the weigh-ins and what have you. But the reach isn't too bad. It's only 3 inches. And there's a lot that goes into that. You don't want to put too much into that. I mean, when a fighter's significantly longer, yeah, you notice it, you acknowledge it, you try to account for it, but there's a lot of other things that come into account on things like this. So, anywho, let's hop into these breakdowns of these two gentlemen. So the first one we do is Gregory, right? Gregory Rodrigues. Yep. Pull him up. Gregory Rodrigues. Here he is right here. All right, this guy is a flat-footed pressure striker. Decent hop back, so he will just kind of bounce back defensively when he's standing at range. Solid left jab, right low kick at range. Does tend to throw wide, powerful punches. Uneducated guard with poor head movement. Solid takedown ability, well-timed entries, decent judo throws. He's a world-class grappler. And he tends to fade a bit late. This is a 3-round fight. I'm not too worried about the fading, not overall. I do think that, on the back end, if he fades too much, he could definitely get caught or whatever, something like that. Now, the issue with this fight that I see is, it's extremely volatile because you got two extremely talented and skilled guys that the thing is both these guys can grapple and strike at a pretty high level, got good power, whatever. Let's pull up his opponent and look at him just really quickly. We do, what's his name? Brunno. All right. Bruno Ferreira, this guy's light-footed pressure striker, switches stances well, has solid right low kick and a push kick from range, keeps a high guard, but tends to throw lunging punches to close the gap. Boxing is pretty loose, he's heavy-handed and tends to brawl a bit in the pocket. Well-timed takedowns with good ground and pound and capable grappler with solid scrambles. Now, this is the way I see this fight going down. Honestly, now that I break these guys down, I remember their first fight. Brunno it might have been a late notice, even his first fight in the UFC. I don't remember. But no one expected him to win that fight. And he did. He came in and he flatlined Gregory. Now, Gregory started pretty fast, I think. He usually starts relatively fast and he's got great power, all these things. But the problem is he is flat-footed And I do think that Brunno is going to be the more effective striker even at range. Even though he's smaller in stature, I think that he could be the more effective striker at range. Now, there's a world where Gregory Rodrigues is like, oh, he's going to grapple this guy, he's going to take him down, judo throw his ass, or throw him down on the ground and look to, go that route. But the problem is you can't bet on this, right? Gregory Rodrigues has shown a tendency to want to brawl, stand and bang. It's shown a tendency to not want to take the fight to the ground. And so for those reasons, you acknowledge that, yes, he's a great grappler. He can do all these things, but you also have to acknowledge that, well, it's hard to really, if that's not his game plan, he's not going to it. It could happen, but maybe it's not as likely as you want to make it out to be. So for those reasons, and because Ferreira is such a good grappler himself, I see a world where Rodrigues could definitely impose his will on the ground. I just don't think that's the most likely outcome of this fight. In my opinion, based off their tendencies and what they do, I believe that the most likely outcome of this fight is that Brunno Ferreira is able to implement his footwork, be the more effective striker from range, keep this fight on the feet, and either win this fight by decision or finish. So I favor Brunno in this fight, but I acknowledge that Gregory Rodrigues can knock anyone out, and he has a path on the ground. It's just whether he's willing to go that route or not. So that's where I lean. I'm gonna favor Brunno in this, but it's a pretty tough fight to call. It's very volatile. These guys are extremely dangerous on both sides, so you just gotta call it what it is, right? And then we're gonna move on. We got Drew Dober going against Michael Johnson. Okay, let's go Dober. Let's see what we got going on here. Dober. All right, he's a light-footed striker. He shows good bounce with solid footwork, high guard, throws heavy backside low and side kicks. Solid 1-2, tends to throw a bit wide in combination, but he has good power, and the dude's tough as nails, right? Shown maybe a little chink in the army here as of late, but I'm gonna give him his credit. The dude's tough. I don't want to write him off yet. If he starts falling over all the time, then yeah, we'll have to consider that. But I'm not ready to say that. So, anyways, Michael Johnson. Hold on. All right, sorry, hold on. Johnson, no space. All right, Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson is a light-footed striker. The guy fights with, pressure and pace. At range, he has good lateral movement, decent left teep kick, good right jab, left cross. He just tend to lunge a bit. Can easily fall into a firefight, and that's a plus minus because it makes him dangerous. He does have good power in the pocket, but it's reckless, right? The guy can wrestle a bit, but his grappling is a little bit of a liability. Wow, this is a fun fight. Have these guys faced off before? Have they faced off before? It's a fun fight. These are both seasoned guys that have fought some of the highest level of talent in the UFC. King Green, Terrence McKinney. Let's pull up Michael Johnson real quick. Let's see him on paper even. Let's see size. Michael Johnson's a little bit bigger. That was a pick'em fight. Split. Only 3 knockout losses. Been submitted a bunch. And these guys are gonna probably just stand and freaking bang too, though. Look at the recent form of old Michael Johnson, though. I mean, Ottoman's. I mean, I'm gonna hold my horses here. I don't know. I'm gonna ever so slightly favor my boy Drew Dober. I think that realistically, he's a little bit more skilled, but it's a close fight. I just favor his skill set just a little bit. But I don't like the recent form. Michael Johnson definitely has the ability to knock out Drew Dober. I'm going to acknowledge that right away. I wouldn't have said that, a year ago probably or whatever, just because he hadn't been knocked out hardly ever. But he has shown the ability to get clipped. And so for that reason, I can at least acknowledge that that's a real possibility in this fight. Michael Johnson, KO. But Drew Dober, I think, is going to be a little bit better athlete here, a little bit quicker, a little bit cleaner striker, maybe. We'll see. Should be a fun fight. It's a great fight. I'm gonna lean Drew Dober just ever so slightly on this one, and it is a pick'em. So, be interesting to see what they look like at weigh-ins. It'll be interesting to see what everyone else has to say about these fights. Come on, baby, let's rock. The next fight we have Rob Font going against Raul Rojas Jr. Now, let's just hop into it because I don't even know what to think about this fight. Real quick, let's pull up Rob Font. Let's see. Font. Ooh. Sorry. All right, Rob Font. Rob Font is a flat-footed pressure striker. Likes to walk forward. Doesn't show much bounce at all. Keeps a high guard. Pumps a nice left jab. Clean 1-2. Good power. Takedown defense leaves a bit to be desired, but he does have a decent sprawl. He'll stuff the head. Get up game looks pretty good. He will threaten submissions and continue to stuff the head to work up. So, yeah, that's just who he is. And let's his opponent on the other side. Yeah, that's not a great look for him. That's tough. That's tough. Let's see this. 4 dash. Sorry. Okay, so on the other side, you do have Raul Rojas. Let's pull him up. Raul. You okay, Dashi? Sorry, my dog is. Poor guy's got heart failure. Alright, sorry. Oh wow, I don't even have anything on this guy. Yeah, I'll have to do. I thought I had everything on him. I guess I didn't realize I didn't have Raul Rojas. But we know what Rojas is going to do. He's going to strike a bit, and he's going to come in and he's going to look to get takedowns, right? And he's going to look to, just methodically work towards a submission. Now, let's just pull him up on paper really quick. I'll do a breakdown on him. I'll watch the film on him and try to get a better idea of, because I think that, Font clearly has the advantage on the feet here, right? But the reality is unless he catches him early and knocks him out, and so I want to pull up Font and see what kind of knockouts he has, especially as a recent. I think he does have one, though. Adrian Yanez, and that was 3 years ago. Yeah, I don't know. Only been submitted once. I don't know. I guess it's kind of tough. I'll have to watch the film on him, but I'm thinking that Rojas eventually he's gonna just probably get his takedowns and either work towards a finish. But the fact that Rob Font does stuff the head pretty well and threaten submissions, doesn't have a ton of submission wins, but he's probably going to be able to defend a lot of it and at least make it through the rounds if he doesn't get submitted. And then you're looking at a potential just decision victory. So it's a pretty questionable fight all in all. like I said, Tele2 Tapes font has a real advantage on the feet here. Clearly the better striker. But Rojas has never been knocked out either. I don't know. He's been tagged a couple times, but he's never been put to sleep. I'm going to favor Rojas. I think that's I think he is the rightful favorite in this, the minus 270. I would probably go by decision. But I would never rule out him finishing him either. I just don't know. I don't love his mentality. I don't. Like, I remember him coming in. I loved him. I was like, oh, I love this kid. He's a young kid. He's ready to fight. Bro, come on. Hold on. He's 11-1. He's 21. He's been in here since like 17 or something, right? 18. This dude has fought. Who? Who has this guy fought? He fought one time in 2025, right? March of 2025. He fought 2 times in 2024. Fought once in 2 times. Like, he just doesn't even fight that much. And that's whatever. You know what I mean? But the thing is the reason I said I don't really like it is because he made it to the UFC, but it's almost like him making it to the UFC at 18 was almost like his pinnacle. It was like that was him becoming champion or some shit. And I know he says he wants to be champion, but he doesn't really fight like he wants to be a champion. He doesn't even really fight like he wants to be the greatest ever. He just talks like it. And so, for those reasons, I think he's a great at what he does. I don't think he's the greatest, most well-rounded fighter. But I do think that, he presents a lot of challenges to people because he's a very, very difficult, aggressive wrestling style. Like I said, methodical kind of grappling. And I'll have to watch a tape on it more to see like more of his tendencies and what have you. But yeah, I favor him. I do favor that style. We've seen it time and time again that grapplers tend to be the more superior kind of skill set. You see it all the time. Grapplers kind of rule even at the highest level, right? So I'll favor that one, but yeah, it could go either way. Oh boy, could get knocked out too. So we haven't seen that. We haven't seen him get knocked out. Let's move on. We got Caio Borralho going against Reinier de Ridder. Let's talk about it, guys. Borralho, this guy lost his last fight, but only 2 losses on the career. Pull him up. Borralho, this guy's a light-footed striker. He shows really good bounce with solid footwork and good range management. He's a switch stance fighter, technical striker that fights behind his jab and picks his shots well. He likes to throw the switch knee. He's a pretty good grappler with submission upside, and that RNC, the rear naked choke. And then when you're on the other side of it, you got Ridder. Blow up. Ridder. Flat-footed striker, very basic skill set on the feet. He has pretty average speed at best. But he's a very credentialed grappler, and he has decent takedowns. He has pretty good knees, too. I don't know that I mentioned that. He does have really good knees. That's even, I'm pretty sure, what he took Bo Nickel out with. But he does have pretty good knees, so if he can get you in the clinch or in the cage push scenario, he can throw knees. Now, another thing he does is he's faded before. He has moments where if he's put in tough spots of adversity, he can wilt quickly. Okay, so that's an issue. I don't know. I want to see these guys face off. I do think that Ridder's probably going to be significantly bigger. He usually seems so big. So I want to see them next to each other for that reason. But reach looks, 3-inch reach on the Ridder side. I still favor Borralho's movement and striking ability, much more technical in my opinion. I mean, he does strike pretty long, so I do like that. Um, reach isn't that bad. 3-inch reach, 3-inch height difference. So it's not super duper significant, but I still want to see them next to each other. You never know what they actually look like. I favor his striking skill set so much more than DeRitter's, so much more, and I think he's like a kind of proven fighter, whereas Ritter is like a great competitor, but fighter like I said, I think that the will to fight's not always there. If he's winning a competition, great, great, and he is good, and he can do that because he's very skilled. He's a great skilled grappler, and he is a big frame guy that has good power. So he has definitely things that favor him. I just don't know that he can regularly close the gap on Borralho and implement, whether it's the knees or or um or the grappling. I think that, and I think I want to give Borralho credit. And I know he lost his last fight, and I didn't really think that he, did fight the smartest game plan. Just to be honest with you, that was my opinion of that. I thought he would approach it a little bit differently than he did, but nonetheless, he's shown he's human. He's not always gonna be great, but I favor the skill set, and I favor his fight IQ, and so for these reasons, I do think that Borralho is able to win this fight. Yeah, I just favor him. But I wouldn't be amazed to see him get a finish. Honestly, even a submission. You know what I mean? Because he's more of a guy like I said, take your back type guy. And so if he's able to put a beating on Ritter before taking his back, I could see him getting like some kind of club and sub type of deal. And I would say that line might even. I'm not sure what that line looks like, but I would at least consider it. Just let's pull these guys up. 4 submission wins. He's never been finished himself. That's another thing. This guy's gonna fight hard. I would think. This guy's been TKO'd 3 times, never been submitted, 14 submission win. But like I said, it's the MMA aspect of this that I'm really focusing on, because I do think that Borralho has great moments on the feet against Ritter. I think so. It'll be an interesting fight. I favor Borralho. And we'll move on. We got the main event. We got the BMF title on the line. It's all for, it's hoopla, really. Let's hype in hoopla, right? But Max Holloway, legend. Charles Oliveira, legend. It is a fun fight, nonetheless. Let's pull these guys up. Max. We ain't even in the right place, y'all. We got Max Holloway. Let's pull him up. Max Holloway, this guy is a fairly light-footed striker, solid footwork, but tends to back straight up before circling. I say that it's not like a constant issue he has, but it is a tendency that he shows at times. He's a technical striker, fights behind tight boxing with some touching kicks. He has good output, has a nice spinning back kick, and fairly heavy body kicks. The guy's pretty durable. One would say one of the most durable fighters ever, right? Taporio put him out, but he's been a tough son of a gun most of his career. Now Charles Oliveira. This guy's a flat-footed pressure striker. He fights with great pace. He moves forward. Fights behind straight shots, left jab, right cross, right teep kick. He does lack head movement, and he fucking just keeps it on the center line, and he gets hit a lot. But he does have nasty knees and elbows in the clinch. And he's a top MMA grappler. So, yeah, there's a reason this guy has been a champion. There's a reason both these guys have been champions, right? Charles Oliveira is a guy that will push forward. Now, this is also one of his greatest flaws because he can get countered and put to sleep. This is a 5-round fight. It's so tough, man. I'm a fan of both of these guys. I really am. And I want to favor Max Holloway's skill set, the striking, the movement. I want to favor that. But I'm going to say this. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that I think Charles Oliveira might be able to win this fight. He's got him at a plus 160 right now. So this line's closer than I thought it would be. I was thinking Max might be a bigger favorite in this scenario. I know he's the one that came up in weight more recently. But I think that, like I said, the skill set kind of leans Max's way, mostly. But here's the thing. Max went up in weight, and while he has shown some touching power lately, and the ability to put people down, he's not a guy that usually goes for like these huge knockout wins, right? And he's not even a guy that's shown great knockout ability, mostly, right? More an accumulation of damage, typically. But I'll respect his power. He does have it. He's shown it. But here's the thing. I do think Oliveira is the more powerful guy here. And I think his ability to press forward. If Holloway at any point starts backing up straight and not circling, and Oliveira is able to close that distance, he's the more dangerous guy in a lot of these situations. And he's more powerful. He should be a little bit stronger. In clinch scenarios, yes, dangerous. Grappling scenarios, dangerous. And on the feet, he's still dangerous. So Max Holloway has the ability to win this fight if he takes the right approach and he really focuses on implementing his footwork. Touch, go. Don't move straight back. But like I said, Charles, I think the tendency of him to just kind of walk forward, unless Max Holloway catches him and puts him down, or compromises Charles early, I think that Oliveira might be able to wear on him. Get him to back up straight, get him up against cage, get some clinch work in, maybe get this fight down and have a real opportunity of finishing Max. I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe it's a hot take. It could go either way, right? This is top of the top. Some of the top guys, number 4, number 5 guy in the lightweight division, right? It's hard to root against either of these guys, honestly. Max is a legend. Like I said, Charles Oliveira is just a fan favorite. He's an exciting fighter, dangerous fighter. And the humbleness of him too, I think you can appreciate usually. But nonetheless, I'm gonna maybe go against the grain and say I think Charles can get this win by just pushing forward. But yeah, there's a world where Max, can catch Oliveira. I do favor his striking at distance, mostly, right? You know what I mean? It's just that tendency of backing straight up. It worries me a bit for Max. That's the only thing. That's the thing that worries me the most in this fight for Max. If that wasn't something that I noticed, I would almost guarantee, or with almost certainty, I would favor Max Holloway in this fight, because I would say, oh yeah, he's just gonna, like I said, touch, go, circle, jab, kick, circle, jab, kick, whatever, you know what I mean? Mixing, I don't really got to say what combinations he's going to put out there, because I know that Max is going to fight mostly pretty smart. He's going to strike pretty long. He's got a kicking game. And so, yeah, I know that he's got that. My question really is just, is Charles Oliveira, his constant walking forward, going to be able to press Max up against the cage at some point? And, might just be the difference in the fight. So, be really interesting to see how this turns out. Let's go. Should be a really fun card. Let's go. UFC. I think it's 326. Toronto, baby. Let's go. BMF, baby, on the line.